Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavansham Shri Rupam Chakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Svam Sajivam Shadaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanitanstam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Sri
Hare Krishna, Danvan Koti Pranam, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Welcome everybody to the Bhagavad Gita session at the Bhaktivedanta Manor. Tonight we will be discussing text 5 from chapter 5. Thank you so much for joining us. For the devotees online, thank you so much for tuning in. Haribo. Yeah, please. Thank you. Please join me for the Jai Radha Madhava prayers. Just a little bit fine-tuning needed. And we shall begin. Why is... Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद बोलो जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय शीला प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय शीला प्रभुपाद गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव जय प्रभुपाद जय शीला प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय शीला प्रभुपाद जगत गुरु शीला प्रभुपाद की जय। Hare Krishna, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gita class at the Bhaktivedanta Manor. Thank you very much for joining us and tuning in tonight. Thank you everyone for being here, present in the temple room. Before I begin, I would like all the assembled devotees and exalted Vaishnavas to please bestow their mercy and blessings upon me, a fallen soul, a wretched soul. Please give me your blessings so I can say only what Prabhupada wants me to say and I can say something useful for my worthless life. Please, 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 dear Vaishnavas, please give me your blessings. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Haripol. We will start with the invocation prayers. Om Jnanam Timirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shivtapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhuvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you, Haribo. So, if everybody can open text 5 from chapter 5, we will be reading it together. If you can please bear with me while I get my laptop working. A lot of funny things have been happening today. We went to the beach. We had a harmonium there, it wasn't working, but we still did kirtan. Come to the temple room, the harmonium is not fine-tuned. Come to the temple room, my laptop is giving me trouble. But anyway, devotees see the good in everything. Okay, so, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll read the Sanskrit and then you can repeat after me. Yat Sankhya Prapyate Sthanam Tad Yogerapi Gamyate Ekam Sankhya Cha Yogam Cha Ya Pashyati Sa Pashyati Yat Sankhe Prapyate Sthanam Tad Yogerapi Gamyate Ekam Sankhya Cha Yogam Cha Ya Pashyati Sa Pashyati Yat Sankhe Prapyate Sthanam Tad Yogerapi Gamyate Ekam Sankhya Cha Yogam Cha Ya Pashyati Sa Pashyati. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. Once again, thank you everyone for joining me online and for those who are present here. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for tolerating me. I hope you can get something helpful from this class. So tonight I have some questions for all of you. Based on this idea of instruments, as I told you, we went to the beach and we were singing Harinam at the beach, and the instruments were giving us some wonderful trouble, but we still managed to sing wonderful kirtan. So on this idea of instruments of love, can you please tell me, this question goes out to the audience and those who are online as well. You can ping Komo and send your responses. Komo Mataji. Can you please tell me from your own experience? Question number 1. How do we become instruments of love? Yes, Komal Mataji. Do you have a mic? Please get a mic. Any other takers? How do we become instruments of love? Anna. Oh yeah, she's bringing it. Just say, Mike, where are you?
Hare Krishna. What was the question again?
The question is, how do we become instruments of love?
Firstly, I think through service.
Mm-hmm.
By rendering service and giving to others, you give love to get love.
Wonderful, I love that.
I'd say that I definitely felt that since coming to the manor, serving with all the other Matajis, and it's a lot of love, like today when we were at the Lido. Yeah, Anna?
Yeah, I wanted to say through service, and also in the purport it says that like when we understand that we have nothing to do with the material world,
Yeah.
and we understand that our natural constitutional position is the soul and part parcel of God. Yeah.
That's an excellent point, and thank you so much for getting it out of the text. Thank you so much. Okay, question number 2. How do we open the heart? I know you get a cardiac arrest and then you go for surgery and you can open the heart, but I don't mean the physical heart, or I mean, like, how do we open the heart to, as Anna and Komal were saying, devotional service? Because sometimes it doesn't seem as that instrument of love. It seems as an instrument of pain, of like exhaustion. It feels like a job. So how do we open our heart to seeing devotional service with love?
Firstly, I think from Shikshashtakam, by chanting, cleansing the dust away, that opens the heart. I think, through the chanting and again service, being with devotees, because a lot of us have become hard-hearted, working, being in the material world, so it takes a bit of time.
Brilliant. Do you remember the verse which says that in Shikshashtakam?
I do not want to say.
You know it. Cheto darpana marjanam, cleansing the heart. Brilliant point, Komo. Excellent.
So I was thinking that actually for us it's very difficult. Even if we are practicing all these things, of course, yes, it cleanses our heart. But actually, unless we get the mercy of the spiritual master, it is not possible to really open our heart. And like it is said, that the spiritual master opens our eyes with the torch of knowledge, then and the heart becomes softened then. So we can't do it by ourselves, really.
Yes.
We can practice so much,
Yes.
but unless we get the mercy, there is nothing really.
Like every day in the morning we sing Krishna Prapti Hoy Jaho Hoite. We can't do it on our own. Only Shri Guru Charana Padma. Give us the shade of the lotus feet. Only through the lotus feet of the spiritual master. That's a wonderful reminder, Amrita Mataji, that how we are instruments, we are mercy cases. We're instruments of not only love, but instruments of mercy. The love comes from receiving it from the heart of the spiritual master. And final questions. Question number 3. How do we channel our love? I was listening to a lecture this morning by Radhanath Swami, and he was talking about his journey, like how, you know, he had no money and he made a trip from America at a very young age, and then he ended up in London, and he was at the Thames River, and he was wondering how the river flows, and he's very mesmerized by the rivers. You know, he calls himself a banker, not an investment banker, but a banker, somebody who lives near the river bank. And like a river flowing to an ocean, to Krishna, how can we channel our love to Krishna, like that analogy of a river? Yep. I can't hear you. Yeah, I can hear it now. Just leave it on, otherwise. Okay, go on.
Firstly, through service. I keep saying it, but I actually think it's through service, you know.
Can you give me an example?
I'll give an example. When I first started doing garlands, I did not like doing garlands. I would tell the truth. I came to the temple and I was like, what is this? No, I'm actually...
I remember that day.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, I want to go home. And then after a bit, I was like, you know, you see it on the deities the next day and you're like, wow, I get to make a garland.
Yeah.
So it's channeling your love to Krishna because the activities you're doing are for Krishna.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if I'm doing Hanuman's or cow's garland.
Yeah.
It's all for Krishna and channeling the love.
Yeah.
Because when you're at the temple as well, a lot of the things you're doing, you're thinking about Krishna. Even if you're cleaning the toilets, you're like, this is for the devotees, and the devotees are most dear to Krishna. So through that way, I like cleaning the toilets.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the way to channel love. I think before I came to the temple, I wasn't channeling so much love, but through the service, you learn it.
Yeah, I just to follow up with this point, how Krishna says, you know, patram pushpam palam toyam, yome bhaktya prayachati. So whatever you offer me with love and devotion, I will accept it. So like Koma said, you know, doesn't matter what we are doing, but if we have this consciousness that we are doing it for Krishna, we are doing it for devotees, and just doing everything for Krishna and for devotees. And this is, remembering that that there is a higher purpose in doing these things. It's not like just we have to do it, you know, we are doing it, it's meant to be done out of love.
Yes.
So,
beautiful point. Yeah.
Because Prabhupada says, you know, Krishna is not hungry, Krishna doesn't need anything from us, but we need to somehow develop love for him.
Yeah.
And love develops through service.
Yeah.
So that's why.
They say Bhava, but Krishna is Bhava Grahi Janardhan. He doesn't see, you know, like whether it's a small act or small. He's Bhava. He's hungry for that mood of love, like you explained, Amrita. So that's an excellent point. Thank you all. Thank you, ladies, for sharing. They say sharing is caring. So thank you. Moving on, Radhanath Swami says, each and every one of us within our own hearts has unlimited, tremendous spiritual power. Remember this, huh? Each and every one of us within our own hearts has unlimited, tremendous spiritual power. The essence of real religion is to access that incredible spiritual power and to express it in every aspect of our life. Then, with a pure heart, we can overcome so many obstacles that seem so impossible. Now, what we can learn from, as Kumu was mentioning, the Shikshashkatam, the 8 poetic verses based on the depth of love in separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if you have the verses on your phone, let's read the first verse together, okay? It says, Jeto darpana marjanam, bhava mahadavgani nirvapanam, Shreya karva chandrika vitaram vatu jivanam anandam buddhi vardhanam pratipadam purnavastavadam sarvatam smapam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. The English translation. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. I will repeat this again because it's very important for this verse that we're studying. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. The nectar for which we are always anxious. Would anyone like to attempt to explain what this nectar is that they're talking about? Come on, ladies. I see Abby has something in her mind. Please share.
Can you just say it again?
So it says, it enables us. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large. It enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Taste what nectar? You don't have to be, we're here having a discussion. Yeah, come on. Abby and then Amrita.
On. Hare Krishna. Pure love, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what we're all anxious for.
Yeah.
That's what everyone is looking for, devotees, non-devotees. Like, you know, every single living entity is looking for pure love.
Yeah.
And it's saying in the verse that this Sankirtan movement and, you know, the holy name, ultimately that is what is, that's how we're going to feel that pure love.
Yeah.
If we really absorb ourselves in the holy name and we're purely chanting, then we're going to feel pure love.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Amrita?
Yeah, like I said, pure love, and this love, it means relationship with, you know, love is only experienced in relationship.
Yeah.
So this nectar which we are craving for is relationship, is the love which comes out from the relationship with God.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
The funny thing is, which we're always anxious, that the soul is always anxious, but it's covered with this dust that we can't remember how anxious we are for this holy name. Let's go on to the next verse. It says, Nam Nam Akir Bahudani Jasarva Shakti Tata Pita Niyamitis Parnain Akala Eta Dishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdevam Midisham Hijani Nanuraga. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. They're not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. There is a famous quote by the poet Rumi, who's written many love poems in the mundane world. And he says, your task is not to seek for love. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. So I bet we all know this verse. We say it every day in the morning. If we could say it together. Tanadapi suniche na tarorapi sahistuna amani na manadena kirtani sadahari. And what is the translation? One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of false sense of false prestige, ready to offer respects to others without expecting anything in return. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. Barriers to service, barriers to devotional service. So please, can you tell me, what barriers do we build in our own lives that keep us from finding true love? What barriers do you see in your life that prevent you from accessing true love? For me, on a personal note, I think it's my false ego. You know, sometimes my ego is very high because of the privileges. And to cultivate humility is such a difficult process for me. So sometimes you have to, like, you know, they say fake it till you make it. You have to to practice humility. Sometimes you have to, you know, pretend to be humble until you get there. I'm not saying you do it maliciously, but sometimes you have to put yourself in a situation which forces you to become humble, which forces you to think about others before you think about yourself. So please, can you give me an example of other barriers that you find in your life?
Yeah, selfishness.
Yes.
That, you know, that we want to satisfy our own senses, and we want to enjoy. And yeah, we think about ourselves most. You know, how can I enjoy? How can I be happy?
Yeah.
And if I don't like the situation, then I just want to leave and go. And yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, great one. Abby?
Making excuses, thinking, oh, this person's in the way of my service, oh, I can't do it, you know, like just seeing barriers when they're not actually there. It's just you kind of, your perception of like, oh, this person is in the way, or this is inconvenient, that's, you know, there's a problem here or there. But actually, you know, in any situation, if you have that purity, then you can serve.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we have to cultivate that purity. It's so difficult because our mind is like the wind. It's so difficult to control, it says in the Gita, right? So here are the three barriers which I see personally, or in general, is one, we really lack genuine humility. You know, it's difficult to cultivate humility because, for my example, what I think is like my ego, you know, when you're growing up, as a child, your parents feed into an ego. You know, they fill that up with like, oh, you're my princess, you're the best child in the world. You know, that ego. They fill into it. It's not a bad thing. I mean, you know, as a child, you should be encouraged by your parents. But of course, we lack humility, and I think one way of building humility is like when we go on to Sankirtan, like today when we went on to the beach. And you know, for some time when we started doing the kirtan, it was difficult. We could see, you know, like people were not approaching us. But as soon as we got into the kirtan, people started gathering around, and it was like they were, you know, flowing with us. So I think once we accepted our situation, that we, you know, that situation we went in, and we were like, we can do this. And then Krishna says, no, you can't do this. Nobody came around. And then as soon as we surrendered, you know, in the Bhakti Shastri course, we were learning the 5 processes of surrender. And one is, always think oneself helpless. So when we think ourselves helpless and we try to build that mood in our kirtan, then it touches somebody's heart. And that's what attracts them to come and listen to us. So that today was a great experiment of like building humility. The other was, we lack tolerance. You know, like it's easy in the ashram. Sometimes it's very easy to build tolerance because there's a wide array of like different events and different circumstances that come into you, that you get instant purification. But still, what happens when somebody does something wrong to you? Immediately you're like, how can you do that to me? I am the princess. I am the queen of this ashram. How can you take my cinnamon, Komal? We lack tolerance. It's like a knee-jerk reaction, right? You're like, I want what I want. But Krishna is really wonderful, is very merciful. Sometimes to cultivate tolerance, he puts us amongst, I'm not saying that everyone in the ashram is intolerant people, but he has a way of making arrangements where he can cultivate that tolerance. But we lack tolerance. And the third one is we lack respect. Sometimes we even lack respect for our own selves. Forget about the other person. You know, when I was a kid, we used to travel to the beach. So there's Nairobi and there's Mombasa. And when you're traveling from Nairobi to Mombasa, there's a mosque in somewhere in the middle. And every time we used to pass that mosque, every single person in the car, in the bus, would bow down. And that's what my mother taught me. You know, she told me, if you cannot give respect to another person's religion, then how will you respect your own religion? So like today we went out there, you know, people came in with, when you were doing Sankirtan, they come up with their own beliefs. There is a certain respect that you have to give them for, you know, to each their own, to the non-believers. But at the same time, you can't lose respect for people, because what does Krishna say? Ishwar Sarva Bhutanam. I am in everyone's heart. Every single person, even the non-devotees. As it says, you know, in the Nectar of Devotion, we should avoid the association of non-devotees, those who will not help us in our Krishna consciousness. But my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Kadamakanana Swami, says that everybody is a devotee. It's just their consciousness for a certain time is that of a non-devotee. So if we can see everyone with that respect, and the only way to see them with that respect is if you see them as what is said in the text. You see them as what? Their swarupa. They are the soul, part and parcel of Krishna. So let's go back to the text and let us read Prabhupada's words together from the purport and translation. I can read it for you. One who knows the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, sees things as they are. The real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life. Hare Krishna, can I please ask you to... Thank you. The real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life. Since the ultimate goal of life is self-realization, there is no difference between the conclusions reached by the two processes. By Sankhya philosophical research, one comes to the conclusion that a living entity is not a part and parcel of the material world, but of the Supreme Spirit Soul. Consequently, the Spirit Soul has nothing to do with the material world. His actions must be in some relation with the Supreme. When he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is actually in his constitutional position. In the first process, Sankhya, one has to become detached from matter. And in devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to work for Krishna, to work of Krishna consciousness. Factually, both processes are the same. Although superficially, one process appears to involve detachment, and the other process appears to involve attachment. Detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One who can see this sees things as they are. So 3 key points that we can get from this text are, number 1, purpose. What is the real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life, which is self-realization, which is the conclusion that a living entity is not the body, but is part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit whole. Number 2, position, our swarup, as the servant of the servant of the servant. The Spirit Soul has nothing to do with material world. His actions must be in some relation with the Supreme. When he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is actually in his constitutional position. And finally, the point number 3 is process. It clearly states in the purpose, in the first process, Sankhya, one has to become detached from matter. And in devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to work of Krishna consciousness. Factually, both processes are the same. Although superficially, one process appears to involve detachment and the other process appears to involve attachment. The central argument here is that both processes, Sankhya, and analytical study and devotional service are the same. Detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One who can see this sees things as they are. So now how do we apply this knowledge to our lives? How do we make it practical? How do we build attachment to Krishna and detachment to matter? Like many of you suggested, the answer is through devotional service, correct? Yes, we can also do analytical study, but how much can the head know that the heart doesn't already know? I think there was a class we had this previous week where one of the Prabhujis was stating that the biggest distance you have to make is from the head to the heart. If we see everything in relation to Krishna, then everything becomes a service to Krishna. Every single thing becomes a service. And that, my friends, is love. Service is love. The other day, we heard, the difference between a woman of the East and a woman of the West. Does anyone remember what that was? A woman, what did they say? A woman of the West marries the man she loves. But the woman of the East, she loves the man she marries. And why is this? Because she builds her relationship on seva. She builds her relationship on service. As you can see, in the pond outside, you see Lakshmi Narayan. And in the Bhagavatam it says that just by massaging the feet of Lord Vishnu, you can attain liberation. That's an example. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2 it says, Mahat sevam dharam ahur vimukte. What does it say? One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or wants to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see the difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in an abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas, such as Srila Prabhupada. We can see through his life how he diligently served his spiritual master with his whole heart. In the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami gave 5 potent forms of devotional service. So this is very important because this is how we can apply this text to our life. Right? The devotional service is the same as analytical study. So they're so potent that a small attachment to one of these 5 items can arouse devotional ecstasy even in a neophyte. Do you remember it? Because it was in Bhakti Shastri exams. Okay, let me awaken your memory, okay? Number 1, residing in Mathura or the magical manna. Exactly. Number 2, worshipping the deity of the Lord, like here, Shishirada Gokulananda. 3, reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam every day in the morning class and asking genuine questions. Number 4, serving a devotee. Serving prasadam, only eating remnants. There's one devotee, very exalted devotee, we see that he only eats the remnants. Can anyone guess who that is? Perchin Prabhu, yes! And 5, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Ayendra Prabhu, he said that our only business in the holy dham is to sit and chant the holy name. Our only business in the holy dham is to sit and chant the holy name. But we're so unfortunate that we cannot even chant. Again, in the Shri Shikshashkatam, we are reminded Nanam galada asuradhaya vadanam gadarudhaya kira pulike nichitam vapukada dava namagrahane bhavisyati. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your names? The same desperation, this mood of urgency to chant is given in the Nectar of Devotion, in a statement about hearing, how potent is hearing and chanting the Maha Mantra. And they gave the example of the saints, what happens to them. It is said that the saints have been able to hear the vibrating strings of the veena in the hands of Narada, who is always singing the glories of Lord Krishna. Now the same sound vibration has entered my ears, and I am always feeling the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gradually I am becoming bereft of all attachment for material enjoyment. The saints, the Mahatmas that we're surrounded by, this is what they can hear. The strings of the veena in the hands of Narad, who is always singing the glories of Lord Krishna. In essence, this text reminds us to think deeply about our devotional service, and most importantly, chanting. Why does Srila Prabhupada say, what does he say? Chant and be happy. Isn't it simple? You know, Prabhupada says, what is the difficulty? What is the difficulty? What is the difficulty? Harer Nam, Harer Nam, Harer Nama Kevalam. There is no other way. There is no other way. When Prabhupada, there was one, Sunday feast, when Prabhupada encouraged his disciples to chant Hare Krishna while sitting with them during a prasadam feast. And one of the devotees replied, Swamiji, how can we chant and eat at the same time? You know what Prabhupada says? Chant in between bites. So even while you're munching prasadam, chant exactly, it's the consciousness. So going back to my initial questions, which I asked in the beginning, how do we become instruments of love? How do we open the heart? How do we channel our love like a river flowing to an ocean to Krishna? One simple answer to these three questions. Chant. Chant and be happy. Chant and become instruments of love. Chant and open the heart, as the holy name alone will cleanse the heart. Chant and channel your love like a river flowing into an ocean of mercy. Through the simplest form of devotional service, this chanting and listening of the names of your eternal lover Krishna, chant and find your way back to the heart. Chant your way to love. Chant your way to Krishna. Chant, chant, chant. Like Radhanath Swami said, access that incredible spiritual power in our heart so we can overcome anything that seems impossible. By expressing this chanting of the holy name in every aspect of our life. We have a very exalted soul who lives with us, and we're very lucky to have her association, Her Grace Jagapriya Mataji. And what is she doing? Every single time we can hear her chanting while she's downstairs in the morning, 2 a.m., in the bathroom. The only person you can hear constantly chanting. She's a perfect example of how she has taken that instruction to her heart. So don't worry about becoming a vegetarian too much or a vegan too much. Just become a chantarian. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for joining me tonight. I hope this class was helpful to you. And if you have any questions, comments, chastisements, please do share, and I will try my best. I can't hear you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for a great class. You could tell it was well researched and there's nice points. I love your genuine nature when you're giving lectures and making us laugh, even though I'm half asleep. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Harika, for the class. I'll remember this chantarian.
Chantarian.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Could you maybe, in the purport, it's saying how detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. Can you say a bit more about that?
Detachment from matter
At the end.
and attachment to Krishna are one and the same? That's a wonderful question. I might not be able to give you the best answer to it.
From your understanding.
For my
What you
understanding,
understand.
what I think is, when you chant, for example, when you're chanting the holy name, it is so potent that at the same time you're cleansing your heart, and at the same time you're developing love for Krishna. So that is the only way that I feel I can express. But if anyone else has something to add to that. Like chanting is so potent. You know, Prabhupada keeps saying, chant and be happy, chant and be happy. It's such a wonderful process that at the same time you're detaching yourself from material bondages, because the holy name, Krishna comes, you know, when you think of the holy name, Krishna comes in his name, form, pastime qualities, right? So he's there with you. He's a person. He's right there with you in his name. So once you're building that relationship with him, then he comes and cuts out all the other, you know, detachment that, you know, you would get attached to him. And at the same time, you're detaching yourself from other material things. I hope that was helpful. I'm not the best answer. Anna, would you like to attempt?
I just heard in a lecture by His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj that we need to engage our material nature to kind of develop our spiritual nature. So I guess that's also maybe it's quite important point that at least I often miss. So.
I think as we attach more to Krishna,